I'm Stefan. I'm a PhD candidate. I do research into data products, data meshes, data markets, and I do a lot of research with large companies because that's where the data meshes are at. And I also work with KPN, and in the context of KPN, I help build data products. I come up with a standardized methodology for building data products, for describing data products, for modeling data products. So that's what we're going to talk about today in the context of how we use DataHub at KPN. Let me really briefly introduce KPN for those who are not familiar. KPN is the largest telco provider in the Netherlands. There's a lot of cool, interesting stats on this slide, but I would just like to point out that by the end of 2026, about 80% of all the 17, 18 million people in the Netherlands will have optic fiber provided by KPN. So we're really proud of that. And yeah, so why am I here? Why I'm at the town hall? It's because KPN uses DataHub. And we actually have been running DataHub for over a year now, and we use DataHub in two separate instances. One is for our Unlock Data program, which is our internal data mesh transition. And there, our goal with the data catalog is to make all our data discoverable and addressable, but also to make data products which meet the Doubtness Plus quality requirements, which stands for discoverable, addressable, understandable, truthful, trustworthy, natively accessible, interoperable, valuable, secure, and feedback-driven. Yes, I still remember them all. But we also use DataHub in a completely separate instance, which is our Data Service Hub, which is a platform as a service for data spaces. So if you're familiar with European data initiatives, data spaces are sort of data markets for companies to work together and to share data. KPN hosts one of the largest data space in health and logistics. And yeah, that also uses DataHub as our data catalog. But today I want to talk more about the data products. I hear there's a lot of interest in data products. Like I said, I do research with a lot of companies, German manufacturing companies, Belgian media companies, Dutch IT companies, or telco companies. And in my experience, the big problem when you want to start describing data products is that the data products are such big holistic entities and there's not a lot of literature on what they are. They're not very well defined as entities, right? So there's data, there's code, there's metadata, there's input ports, there's output ports, there's control ports, there's responsibilities and actors and domains and infrastructures. So we have to really understand what a data product is, and then we can start describing this. And the way that we solve this at KPN is we have this really big formal model. It's way too big actually, but it's complete, which is nice. And I'm gonna really briefly show you some of the things, and then we'll do a demo because yeah, that's much more fun. Yeah, as you can see, there's a data product, and the data product has all these properties like data providers and stuff. And then for us, a data product has one or more data assets, and the data assets are sort of the objects that the data product provides information on. I will give an example about this, but every data asset has one or more distributions, which are the technical manifestations of our data assets. So these are the actual tables or the views or the Kafka topics or the flat files. This is what you're actually sharing, but you can have like a Kafka topic about the data asset and a CSV file, let's say, about the data asset. And they're both about the same object, but they're different technical manifestations of data. Now, these distributions are then made available through output ports, which is where you go to get data from a data product. We also run data contracts, so that's very hip at DataHub right now. We're very excited about the developments there. And we really want data contracts on an output port level. For example, you can have a, say, anonymized distribution for an anonymized consumer, and you can have a full distribution, and they're made available through different output ports, and so we need different data contracts for that. This again is shown in the demo in a bit. We also have input ports to keep track of our lineage. We keep track of the use cases, which allows us to improve discoverability and understandability of data products. We have control ports, we have domains, we have institutional knowledge, and actually most of this is already natively supported even in the open source version of DataHub. So it's very nice. If you go looking, by the way, this is the link if you want to see this model. This model is fully open source. Like I said, I'm a scientist, so you can check it out. It's a full description. If you do want to go deep, this is the really quick flyby version. But you can see things like domain is already in DataHub. The institutional knowledge and the use cases, we keep it in the business glossary, works very well for that. There is a data product entity in DataHub. There is a whole analytics page where you can track, let's say, the certain properties of data products, which we use as a control point to check if people assign owners to data product or if they're assigned to domains or if there are use cases registered for data products. Great. Data contracts are coming. We're very hyped. I just heard Shashanka, or I saw Shashanka type in the chat. There's also output ports coming, but we'll get back to that. Because this is the part where you see my really nice drawing that we're doing it, but we're still figuring out the exact details, let's say. But let's do a demo. So this is a very complicated data product, and I've deliberately chosen a very complicated data product to see, let's say, the value of structuring your data products like this. This is for fiber rollout in the Netherlands, which this is, by the way, is completely anonymous. Everything in here I've changed, but the spirit, let's say, is true. So you can see here we have 5 different input ports. So data is coming from, let's say, operational systems, but it also can come from external data products. We have some data objects. So for example, there's connections here. I don't know if you can see my mouse. There's connections, which is like where the cable actually is. Cables are at addresses. As you can imagine, connections are created in projects. There's contractors associated with projects, etc. So these are, real world things that we have data about. And then we have different distributions. So we might have a flat file. We might have a Kafka topic. We might have a full, complete all the data. We might have a more anonymized version of the data. And we make this available through different output ports for different types of consumers, right? So for example, we might have an external consumer, a partner of KPN who helps with the fiber rollout. And this partner doesn't get all the data. They get a anonymized version or a very trimmed version of the data, but it's still about these 6 data objects. But for our internal reporting and analytics, we might make the full data available. We might make it even available through a SQL-based API, as well as a Power BI optimized output port, whatever, right? So what does this then look like when you start describing it in DataHub? I'm tabbing, and I hope you can still see my screen. It looks like you can. This is what, again, this is a demo, so it's not as complete as we have it in our own DataHub environment, because I have to keep everything private. Let's say I had to anonymize everything, but you can see here, this is a page for our demo fiber rollout data product. And you can see there's all the things that the DataHub supports natively, like owners, like domains, like glossary terms, which are actually used as well. I might click them later. And you can see here that we have some values that we describe. And for us, it's very important, because this is such a complicated data product, because there's like hundreds of tables and views and Kafka topics and flat files associated with this, that our consumers don't need to dive into these 100+ views and tables and Kafka topics. That they land here, that they see, this is a data product about connections and projects and addresses and active operators. That they then can see, okay, what does that even mean? What does an address mean? Okay, well, I click it, I go to the business glossary. My bad, I need to connect to the VPN, because I'm in Germany right now. I'm visiting a research institute. Hopefully now it works. Looks like it. Yes. And you can see here, this is the business glossary functionality of data. Nothing special here. I created this entry, and this is owned by the domain, right? So we organize this in domains, and the domains defines what an address means for the fiber rollout domain. And you can see also that we then link this to what address means in other domains. So you sort of, if you do it this way, you get sort of top-down interoperability and not just bottom-up interoperability. We also look at bottom-up interoperability. So we also track the lineage of the individual tables and the sets, and that's great and it's super cool. And DataHub is really good at that. But we also find it valuable to say, this is, what an address means for the people who make our fiber connections versus the people who go to install TV or who sell cell phones, right? And this is then how you can think also about interoperability. So that's, you can click on any of these and you can get human readable descriptions of what the data assets mean. And then if you go as a consumer, you land here, you say, okay, I want information on these data assets. I understand what they mean. Now I want to see what is actually available. So I can see, okay, there is Power BI available. There's Kafka topics maybe available. There's an FTP that is specifically for finance, or there's one for an external consumer. I probably don't want that. And then I think I filled out this late. That's something we are still thinking about how to do this most optimally. But if there's in this case, 22 tables and views lying underneath this right now, you click this, you get a schema and you get all the tables and the views that are exposed through this output port. And in this case, it's all fake data, right? So this is a practice set that I uploaded to our dev environment so that I can show you. But this is how you go from our data product landing page to the actual tables and views and Kafka topics and files, etc. We don't want you to, for example, click assets and then find 100 different assets under here and then still have to go manually through them and say, I need this specific asset. That's still annoying for us, let's say. So we also keep some information on input ports. We also keep information on consumers. So I think I created, So you can see here the demo use case that I added. It's very simple, but we want our consumers to actively write down how they use and consume the data products, because then this allows us to improve the discoverability and the understandability of our data products. And also, again, if you consume data from multiple data products, then there must be some interoperability there. So this is also a really easy way to have top-down interoperability tracking or checking, right? Given that I'm already nice over time, maybe we cut it over here. Oh, no, really quickly. I'm super happy. I just saw Shashanka type that you're working on output ports, because right now we type output ports like this, right? We keep a lot of documentation external because maybe we already have it. But an output port, first, it's an endpoint. So it's an API or it's some place you go to get your data. It's a set of instructions. So if you want to consume this, you have to request access through EAM, or you have to send an email and explain to me what you want, or whatever, can be anything. And it's a data contract. Data contracts, like I mentioned, they are on an output port level for us. That's very important. I think that's a nice place to cut off the demo. I have one more slide, which is the lesson learned, the takeaway. I have 3 main takeaways here, which are one, really make sure that you understand what the data product is within your organization. Make sure you define your data product before you start describing it. If you start describing just your data, or if you just throw a bunch of data together and say, this is my data product, then you're missing out on all these other things, the holistic entity that is a data product. The data product is not just a bunch of data thrown together, right? So understand the structure of your data. This also leads very nicely to point 2. Describe your product, right? So make sure you describe your contract, your input ports, your output ports, your owners, your domains, your responsibilities, etc., as well as your data. So data, it's really good in my experience at describing data sets and views and tables and Kafka topics. And it's really getting there for describing data products. And you can already do a lot of things. And then finally, what we find very valuable, especially once your data products become more complicated, is to describe your data on multiple levels. And I've sort of shown this. So we keep also logical schemas of our data products. I didn't show that. They're external, but we keep logical schemas of our data product where we say this is actually what an address looks like. These are the entities and their attributes, let's say. We also do the human readable one at the business glossary. And then we also have the technical schemas where we go really in detail and we describe all of that. We find that very valuable. I think, yeah, that's it for me.